Welcome to the second SPE live session with the Energy Influencers. The name is Asif, and I will be moderating the session today. So I'm based out of Mumbai in India, and I am a strategy consultant with Accenture tagged to their energy practice. Right at the outset, let me touch upon three acronyms that you will be hearing today: SPE, TWA, and YP. SPE stands for the Society of Petroleum Engineers, TWA for the way ahead, and YP for young professionals. If you'll bear with me for a minute, I'll give you a quick overview of TWA and the Energy Influencers Initiative. TWA is SPE's e-publication run by YPs. The TWA editorial board is made up of 50 YPs from all across the world, representing different geographies and different sectors of our industry. These YPs volunteer their time and energy to source, edit, and create content for TWA. SPE, this publication, YP, transitioned from a print-only format to a digital format back in 2016. We launched the Energy Influencers Initiative to shine a spotlight on 15 young heroes and heroines of our industry whose work positively impacts and influences others. We are also joined by a wonderful audience today, and I request the audience to type in their questions in their favorite social media platform. In this SPE live session, we will be featuring YPs who we identified back in April 2020. Before we start, a quick overview of the structure. We'll start with a quick round of introductions, and then post that, we'll do individual deep dive sessions with the YPs, and each deep dive session will conclude with an audience question that will be open to the panel. So let's begin with the panel introductions now. Panelists, if I could have them on screen, we are glad to have you here. And as I call out your names, tell us where you're calling in from today and a little bit about yourself. So, Добрый день, Yana. Over to you.
Hello, добрый день. I am a labor psychologist, PhD in psychology, and I am from Arkhangelsk, Russian Federation. Now I am head of psychology department, Northern Arctic Federal University, and my scientific sphere is professional suitability in extreme activities. The main area of my scientific interest is psychological well-being and safety oil and gas fly-in, fly-out workers. I have been researching this topic since 2006. And also I have been a member of SPE, annually take part in the conferences organized by this society. And in 2016, we create and are actively developing the thematic of network working in the Arctic in University of the Arctic. Thank you.
Guten Tag, Joschka. Over to you.
Hello zusammen. Hello together. I'm calling from Aachen, from Germany. And first of all, I have to say I'm extraordinarily thankful for this honor, for this privilege to be one of the energy influencers selected by the SP International and the TWA editorial board. And thank you very much, Raphael, for nominating me. It's a pleasure to represent my university. I'm sitting now in my office, in my institute. And yeah, it's the RWTH University of Aachen. And I'm currently pursuing my PhD in petroleum geology here with a focus on petroleum system modeling and petroleum geochemistry. I obtained a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science also here in Aachen University. I don't know if you can still see me. I just had some problems with my screen, but I think I'm back again. So I worked during my studies always in different research institutes here in Aachen University, natural hazards, structural geology, and now I'm working in the Institute of Geology and Geochemistry of Petroleum and Coal. And yeah, today I'm a teacher and PhD student here in the university, teaching petroleum system modeling, master student classes, software seminars, and sometimes also supervising master students and bachelor students in their final projects. Yes, so I became a geologist.
Namaste, Ankesh. Over to you.
Thank you, Asif. Thank you for having me here, and it's an absolute pleasure. Firstly, I would like to thank SPTWA for this recognition and this platform. I'm calling in from Gurgaon, India. I'm a senior petroleum engineer with KN Oil and Gas Vedanta, and I've been with them for past 7 years. I joined as a graduate trainee here. I hold a bachelor's in applied petroleum engineering and an MBA in oil and gas management from the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. When I joined KN, based on our initial training program, I became a part of the well completions and stimulations team at KN, and particularly have worked a lot on hydraulic fracturing and stimulation projects. Field has been a constant over the years. I believe it keeps you calibrated, if I may say. So over the years, there have been projects with respect to appraisal as well as development. And currently, I'll be getting into a few exploration ones. Some key highlights would be appraisal projects with relation to tight oil, which involved hydraulic fracturing, horizontal transverse, and longitudinally oriented wells. A short yet interesting one was a satellite field project that I worked on, which involved a lot of OPEX reduction, cost optimization exercises, including bottlenecking and a lot of pump optimization there. But my longest stint has been with mature fields, which contribute the largest to ongoing KN's production, where I was leading the stimulation initiatives in challenging polymer flooded environment. And currently, and very recently, rather, I should say, I'm now in a very interesting role, which allows me to lead petroleum engineering and surface facility operations for the Northeast region, where KN Vedanta plans to open up a new frontier under the OLP blocks. So I'm absolutely fortunate, not only for the rich experience, but I'm absolutely excited to be part of the India's energy story.
Dhanyavad, Ankesh. All right, so let's proceed to the deep dive session of our interaction today. We'll start with Ankesh in order of the first name. Let me just give you a quick headline of Ankesh's outstanding work. So Ankesh is an innovative problem solver. His work in well stimulation led to significant performance improvement and became the standard operating procedure in his organization. So Ankesh, my first question to you. Ankesh, let's start with the problem you had solved, which brought you the Young Leader Award from KN's Executive Committee. Your work led to a 500 to 800% improvement in performance in a mature field at 75% of the cost, and it became the SOP for KN. So please tell us more about this outstanding work.
Sure, Asif. So the work involved the genesis of a technique that we term today as sand scarring. More than the technique, because there's a lot of detail out there, I would rather first talk about the scenario. So because that's the most interesting part. So the optimization, we had an opportunity where we could optimize the injection patterns further with revival of dead injectors, as well as improve performance of a few underperforming injectors. Now, by dead injectors, what I mean are both water injectors as well as polymer injectors. But they were those wells where they were suffering from what we call deep damage, basically a phenomena due to deep well filtration, where even the conventional stimulation techniques, which otherwise would work on, say, the other fields of the same reservoir system, they also started responding fairly poorly, the conventional stimulation techniques. And from there, even when we doubled down to adopting new chemistries based on supposed damage mechanisms, as well as mechanical meals of, say, reperforations and flowbacks, yet we were not seeing the results that we wanted to see. So in a typical scenario such as this, the response would be that why don't we bypass the damage with hydraulic fracturing? Particularly in a multi-Darcy field, you would go for a TSO of some sorts, and then deal with this damage. But that would come at an incremental cost, a fair amount of time if a frac fleet is not there, and ultimately impacting your OPEXs. So what we decided was to look into what can be done with the existing resources. And as a result of that and the disruptive thinking behind it, sand scoring came about. So sand scoring is a technique based on sound principles of perforation breakdown, fracture extension, and rock toughness. Mind you, it is particularly for high permeability fields with softer rocks that we have validated for now. This is also background. There are a lot of experiments which are ongoing for different mechanical and flow properties of the rock, where we would like to see if this technique can be extended and be applicable. But as of now, this has been established for high perm systems such as ours. The good part was what we wanted to achieve for a classic stimulation. There are three parameters that you would always strive for: is improvement in your injection performance, improvement in conformance, and sustenance as a result. The technique not only allowed us to see the three in a very convincing manner, but ultimately we were able to quickly realize the impact that it brought about in the nearby producers by seeing the injection pressures going up and giving us the opportunity to ramp up. One quick point I'll make in here are the challenges, and it's very interesting that when you try to, say, put across an unconventional technique to an internal and external stakeholders, it takes a fair bit of communication with respect to making people understand what your true intent is. And therefore, because of your own due diligence, you have the tendency. It's all on you to really collaborate, put the message out there with the stakeholders, state all the technical and commercial risks upfront, so that the message is accurate, brief, and clear, and you give them the tools to make the right decision. With that, I would just sort of sum it up that that's all about sand scoring and how it has sort of made a difference to what we are doing here.
Right. That was an interesting answer. I mean, at the end, you're saying that it's communication and clear trust between parties that helps define the complex technical challenge. All right, let's move on to a second question, Ankesh. So another feather in your cap is your selection as one of the top 100 corporate leaders by the Economic Times. And tell us a little more about the rigorous selection process, the peer set, and also tips for YPs on how they can compete and win in this challenge in the future.
Sure. So this was Economic Times Young Leaders 2019, which I had participated in. Although Economic Times has been doing this since 2012. And every year you see an influx of from the corporate India of about 40 to 50,000. It ranges in that, where people apply through Economic Times and the interface that they allow. So Economic Times has been doing this. It has a 4-phase process through which the ultimate objective is to bring about those leadership skills and identify them in the individuals and prepare them for the future leadership roles that corporate India has to offer. If I could break down the phases that the ETYL is all about, the first phase is about an online personality test. It's a simple 20-minute personality test that gauges what your thought process is, etc. Phase 2 is an online aptitude test, which evaluates your verbal and numerical skills. It also has a segment of psychometric tests. So make sure that you're in the best of your mind when you're giving this. It's a very interesting one, though, I must say. Phase 3 is the on-ground assessment, my favorite, to be honest, because it involves a lot of group discussions where your leadership skills are actually determined. How they do that is they have a separate panel which is actually gauging how you behave and how your external reply to reactions, and basically a lot of external factors that come into that. you're suddenly made a VP of finance and you're asked to dwell upon a particular case, and they would like to hear from what sort of solutions you're coming out with, or what sort of alternatives and how you're taking together. Ultimately, things that matter. And phase 4, once you get in here, you're actually in the top 100 here. So phase 4 is all about your one-on-one interviews with CEOs. So there are about 10 CEOs on the entire panel, at least in 2019, that was the case. These are CEOs from the blue chip companies in India. In my case, I met Mr. Vineet Nair, who's an ex-CEO of HCL Technologies and currently the founder of Sampak Foundation. These experiences are just, are something that to treasure, because I'm in fact in touch with him on a personal note as well. So these are the opportunities that that once you get through the rigorous process allows you to open up a different mindset altogether. For YPs, I would say that since I've spelled out the phases, my suggestion would be that if you see yourself really getting through these phases, like I mentioned, you should definitely go for it. You should try it out at least and see how it goes. But remember one thing, it's the journey which is the most enriching part and not the result. So you should definitely go for the journey part is what I would say.
Thanks, Ankesh. Yeah, that's you're right. The journey is the most important part. Sometimes people want a guide to help them navigate that journey, and now they have you. So you are going to be their guide, hopefully. And yeah, people.
Please feel free. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, moving on to another question, Ankesh. So a little bird told me that you're also the lead vocalist of a band called Something Else. Tell us more about this passion of yours, and I'm sure the audience would be quite thrilled if you could indulge us with a few lines of your singing.
Okay. So yes, music definitely helps me keep sane. It's something since childhood that I've always been into. In fact, so my father comes from the armed forces background, and that's when we got posted where the place used to just keep raining most of the time. And there was a church nearby, and I happened to, happened to go to the church quite often, and that's where I met a very kind gentleman who offered that he would teach me music, but in that specific front, the guitar, and that's how it all started. And since then, there has been no looking back. Not only the vocal cords are just a gift of God, I would say. I'm not trained, but from there, I have not only just learned the guitar, I've learned the keyboard, and right now, thanks to the lockdown, I've actually started picking up saxophone. So that doesn't end there, absolutely not. But as far as the band is concerned, as if you're right, the band was actually formed in the university, in my university days in Dehradun, with members of both day scholars and boarders. So I was a boarder there. And we did a lot of shows and festivals in and around the university. And eventually, and this is the interesting part, when I moved back to Kane, or rather moved into Kane, I joined an existing group. I was able to join, and they happened to even accept the same name of the band. So Something Else, it definitely struck a chord, and it went down really well. As far as me singing goes, I just have a humble suggestion here that probably once all the YPs are done with their deep dives, then why don't we end with the best for the last?
All right, Ankesh. I'm going to hold you to that. So right at the end, we'd love to hear you sing. So we're going to move on to the next question now. And after that question, we'll be happy to take an audience question to the entire panel. Even this question will be open to the audience, to the panelists. But you get to go first, Ankesh. So the question is, most of us are used to incremental changes or improvements, right? I mean, few of us have the gumption to redesign or rethink a process from scratch or basis first principles. An example was what you did with your patent application for an offshore nuclear desalination plant. Very interesting solution there. So my question is, how do you take the call on investing effort between an incremental change versus a redesign, and tips for YPs, how they can go ahead and be innovative problem solvers?
Okay, so what I thought was let me do this. So I'll just quickly talk about the ONDP since you mentioned about it. So that's the applied patent application from my end. And there, basically, I found a gap, and I tried to meet it with an opportunity. So the gap that was identified was that typically the offshore platforms have a life. The design life is a delta of at least a decade higher than the life of the field, and that delta is more or less a liability on the firm, because you have subsequent dismantling and decommissioning costs that come along, especially, and depends on which offshore environment are you in. So that cost may just suddenly vary big time. The opportunity lies, and again, this is something that I believe in. If you look at the Middle East, the West and North African nations, these are rich on oil, but deficient on fresh sources of water. And there's a lot of desalination going out there. So basically, the opportunity is that you have oil infrastructure, but you lack on good source of water, and hence I try to meet these two opportunities by increasing the throughput with the installation of a nuclear. An FNPP is the concept. It's a floating nuclear power plant which icebreakers in Russia use. So that can be accommodated on an oil platform, and you can get throughputs which are commercially viable, high volumes that you could deploy using existing pipelines on the platform. So that's the whole thought. There is a lot of thought I could go on explaining about why nuclear, and probably some questions out there would give me that opportunity to deliberate more on. But that's the whole idea. What I've done is I've looked at, it's more like an amalgamation of incremental change and a redesign. The redesign part is definitely more, but the incremental side is how to utilize the existing platform. But as far as I have to put it more generically, this is how I see it. There are various segments in a process, but all segments can be categorized into majorly three things. A segment that is doing great and you want to maintain it. Then there are segments that that they need an improvement. So there is a gap that you've identified based on benchmarking or whatever exercise or the best practices that you have. And the third one is segments that you know for sure are underperforming. Now, to do this binning exercise, what you need is good data management practices, good analytics that will allow you to, say, gauge your specific elements that are impacting the whole process. That may allow you to benchmark for measuring improvement, like I said earlier, and one of the most important facts, allow you to demonstrate the ROI to any of the stakeholders. So when you have the right data, you could go back and categorize, in my books at least, the segments which are doing great and you want to maintain it. Probably an incremental change would do the job. Where there are segments where you need to improve because you have an identified gap based on benchmarks and best practices, again, an incremental change can help you there. But if there are obvious segments which are underperforming, you need to identify them, call them out, but they become a very good candidate for redesigns. And the reason why I say that is because by then your incremental changes have already been the impact has already been either minuscule or non-existent. And you need to be open to that and imbibing that fact so that you could think consciously towards a redesign. For the YPs, I'll just put in 2 quick points. Firstly, be very much aware about your cognitive biases. You're human enough, so am I. This comes in, and therefore it's absolutely important to have a good feedback loop and manage your stakeholders really well. And I would also say that you need to avoid making radical changes when minimal adjustments will suffice, because you also need to consider the cost of switching to a new interface or a new design. There's a lot of this thing about innovation, and people think that, oh, I'm going to innovate and therefore I need to change things radically. But sometimes the beauty really lies in those minimal adjustments. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have. That's my
right. No, I think that's great. Let's hear from the panel. Anyone from the panel who comment on this? How do you think innovatively, redesign, reinvent?
Yes, I would, Joshka here.
Yeah,
I would
go ahead, Josh.
So I agree. I totally agree. It's sometimes necessary to look on a broader scale, to change the perspective, to create a bigger horizon. And in some disciplines, for example, in, let's say, geology or medicine, we're using the same technology, and sometimes it's really worth a try to just get out of your box and change the whole perspective and just check what other researchers, other scientists already discovered in other fields, which have maybe different names, but very similar applications. So just outside the box thinking is maybe a very big, very good, powerful drive for innovation as well.
Yeah, I agree, Yoshka. I mean, open innovation, take an idea from another industry and sort of customize that and rethink our industry. Okay, so what we can do is we can take a quick segue into the audience question now. So the audience question is for the panel. What is your one top tip for YPs who are preparing for interviews?
I mean, this is something that I've learned. That is to be genuine. When you're across the interview table, there are a lot of things which are going down in your mind that time, with respect to talking about your work, what have you done earlier, and things like that. But it's really about the person you are, the EQ which matters at a certain point, which is what you need to communicate, and therefore the person you are, I believe, matters much more than the IQ at times. And in an interview, if there are a lot of people who are looking out at those softer sides of you, but if I could put it very simply, be yourself, and just don't try to be someone else.
That was sweet and simple. I agree. Yoshka, you want to go next?
Of course, I also have something to add, and it goes in the direction of the skill of curiosity. Me as a scientist, I'm always curious. I always want to know something. Yeah, and I think in an interview you can basically surprise your future employer, your future company, when you investigated already about the company before you come to the interview. Because sometimes I have the feeling YPs or students or young people in general go to the interview and just prepare themselves and just expect answers or expect questions, and they have to answer. But sometimes it's really a good idea to have studied the blueprint of the company and just ask some questions, or like surprising questions like, do you have a gym in your company? Yeah, can I use your gym when I'm working here? So this is a question that gives additional spice into the interview and shows that you're curious about the working environment, and not only work and not only the salary, but also the let's say the soft skills or other opportunities that you can find in the company. Yeah. So be curious and ask questions, and not only answer the questions of your future boss.
And Yana, I was saving the best for the last. So you're actually a psychologist who helps interviewers decide how to screen candidates. So go ahead. What's your tip?
Yes, thank you. To my mind, you need to analyze own positive qualities and skills, and then you can choose what qualities and skills can give more for these organizations and for in this role, and also you can present own interest and own motivations for this work, not socials socials representations, that's all, but only specific qualities and specific skills, to my mind.
So to whoever asked that question, your top 4 tips are: be genuine, take a look at the big picture, so you can let them know how one thing impacts the others. Be curious, and from Yana you have know yourself, know what motivates you, what makes you tick. So I think those are excellent tips from the panel. We'll move on to the next deep dive session, and Yoshka, you're up next. So let me quickly introduce Yoshka. Yoshka is a PhD candidate. He serves as a youth spokesperson in Germany. He's involved in several student causes, including helping international students overcome language barriers. So, Yoshka, my question to you is, you have a very interesting quote from Christina Dodd on your LinkedIn profile, right? And it reads, "When I break a rock open with my pick, I'm a prophet. I see the past, I see the future, I know where the world is going and where it's been, and I always want to know more." So would you like to explain it a little from, from the perspective of your research in geosciences?
Yeah, Asif, thank you very much. I really love this quote from Christina Dott, because it's really expresses the passion of a geologist, of a geoscientist, and it's really like that. If you go to the field, you go outside, and you find a rock somewhere in the mountains, or even in a well bore, like a rock sample. It's really like that. You start to ask questions, and that goes back to my curiosity point that I just added 2 minutes ago. Because geoscientists, the nature of a geoscientist is curiosity. And if you are a geoscientist, you look at the world with basically unlimited scales. Yeah, we like to watch our planet from space, and at the same time, we are passionate about small minerals and fossils under the microscope. So, for example, when I want to understand the development of a sedimentary basin, yeah, where we want to discover resources like yeah, oil, gas, coal, groundwater, geothermal energy, I need to study the whole plate tectonics. I need to understand the system, the crust below the sedimentary basin. I need to understand the organic matter that's in the system. Yeah, so the potential source rocks. So where does the oil come from, and what was the paleodepositional environment? How much organic matter was deposited? What was the temperature? At the time of the deposition, what was the temperature during the burial, during the subsidence of the system, and what is the petroleum potential from this oil source rock? Yeah, how much oil can we expect in the subsurface? And of course, all these questions can be studied and investigated in the laboratory, but also in the field. So we basically work under fresh air. We work in the laboratory. We work on the desk, on the computer, of course. So it's multidisciplinary. It's multi-scale work, and of course, it's so many questions. It's global questions. It's micro scale questions. And for example, when I worked for Schlumberger, it was basically during my studies, during my undergraduates and during my master program. I was a part-time student tester in the Schlumberger office here in Aachen, and I tested software for petroleum system modeling. And the petroleum system is basically the whole story that leads us to the extraction of oil and gas. So we have to understand: is there a source rock? Is there a reservoir rock on top? Is there with the perfect timing? Do we have also a trap and structure and a sealing formation that holds the hydrocarbons in the subsurface? That we have an accumulation, and we have to ask so many interesting questions also about paleoclimate, about the current climate. Yeah, and oil and gas and climate change is so basically related, especially from the perspective of a geoscientist. It's so clear that the future of our industry is integrating the question of how is the climate developing and how will we continue with this issue. And you just flashed a few pictures. Maybe you can flash it again, Asif, with a racing car, and yes, and the geologist in the field. So as you can see on the right side, yeah, this is Daniel, a good friend. He's also a geologist. He's working in Berlin today in a consulting company, and this is during a field trip of our university. So we went to the European Alps to discover a life-size reservoir. It was a fractured carbonate reservoir, but as you can see, it's under blue sky, or maybe clouded sky. But we can walk through this analog reservoir and can understand the fractures. We can understand the structure and the geometry and the size of this whole reservoir while standing on top of a mountain and having this wonderful view. And you see, it's a lot of fun because we have a smile on our face. And on the left, you see on the lower part, you can see that we can also bring our PowerPoint presentation to the printer, and from the printer to the field, and just show our professor how this mountain formed. Yeah, and this is so amazing. Just walk into the field, kilometers of hiking into the mountains, and then present our science, our answers for the questions that we have. And at the moment when I found the passion for geology, that was back in 2007. And I was a race driver back then, and I was also working for Mercedes-Benz. Okay, as you can see, it's a Volkswagen race car here in the picture. But at the same time, I was working as automotive management assistant in a Mercedes-Benz workshop. And in 2007, the performance of the car industry declined a lot. And there was a large overproduction. and decreasing demand just before the global downturn, the global economic crisis started, and affected not only my business, it also affected a lot of other businesses. Yeah, so in this summer, my boss came to me and told me, okay, Joschka, we cannot extend your contract. You're a good person, you're maybe also a good salesperson, but there are no jobs basically. Yeah, so because we are not hiring because the numbers, they don't allow us to give you a job or other people. So they laid me off, and I had the opportunity to have a great holiday with my father in the Alps, and that was, it's today 13 years ago, when I realized that limestone, yeah, in 3 kilometers height, yeah, 3 kilometers above the sea level, a limestone that originated from the below the sea level, was moved by tectonic forces like 4 or 5 kilometers upwards, yeah, from the sea bottom to the sky. And then I was like, okay, cars, compared to that, cars are very boring. And I wanted to understand this, yeah, these huge global questions, how mountains form, how sea levels changing, and how do we get the minerals and the energy for our society to run our industry. And so my boss told me, okay, let's say go to the forest, go to the mountains, and find your discipline. And this is exactly what I did. Yeah, so I was not extended with a contract. I was extended with a new discipline, with a new passion, and that was a key moment in my career when I changed my profession, and it was really beautiful because yeah, basically I exchanged tires and engines and lap times against geological timescales and yeah, some really nice, exciting questions. And yeah, it's really amazing
Wow.
what small rocks can tell fantastic stories, and I really love it. Yeah, I can really recommend if you are now in the situation that you have a downturn in your industry, and I think everywhere it's the case more or less, and you basically need a new passion, you need a new motivation. Why not try geology? Yeah, I'm since 10 years, I'm a passionate geologist and I really like it. I don't regret it. It was a hard way, but it paid off. And I can really recommend for people who are like students or young professionals who are searching for new challenges. That's the real challenge. I really like it. I can really recommend it. Yeah.
Yoshka, you're an awesome salesman. I mean, you just made geology so sexy. A lot of people might be changing their streams right away. Uh, let's move on to a second question.
Yeah, of
So
course.
we're
Welcome.
gonna yeah let's talk about your volunteer work with SPE, right? So you are a co-organizer of the Student Technical Congress (STC), where
Yes.
you moderated YP panel discussions. And there are three parts to this question. So one, what was your motivation to support STC? The most significant insight from the YP discussions, and advice to YPs in general.
Okay, thank you very much for this interesting question. Basically, let's start with a motivation to be a volunteer. So my motivation in volunteering. It's also very much related to my first career, or to my early years when I was a teenager. So I was passionate about cars. I was a race driver, and I realized that in this racing club there are many teenagers, many kids, so people from 8 years and up to 20, 22. We were all in the same team, and we all needed guidance. We all needed orientation, including me. Yeah. So, and I realized that orientation is for a young boy or young girl, or for young people in general, it's very important. And if you have no people who are guiding you, or who are yeah, provide challenges or provide opportunities where you can grow or where you can fail. Yeah, failure is also a very important attitude that you need. You need to fail sometimes. You need to fail in life. Um, so I was volunteering in this race club to be a trainer and to become the spokesperson of this mixed group of young people, including people from Sri Lanka, people from Kazakhstan who were just migrated to Germany and they couldn't speak any German. So I helped them to overcome language barriers when we were talking in very basic German, but step by step they improved their language. And today, some of them, still my best friends, are managers and successful managers in companies here in Germany. So that really paid off for them and for me as well. Um, and then I basically applied this the same mindset in the school and also in the university when I entered university. So I saw that if you study geoscience, if you study in general, there are so many ways you can go. There are so many options you can choose from. So I selected the SPE for volunteering because I saw basically one direction, yeah, and I want to find out more about this direction, and I want to help other students to yeah, to orientate, so to have orientation. And SPE, then of course, it was the direction that lead into the next volunteering roles. And from a driver and trainer in the racing club, I became a volunteer in the student chapter, in the SPE student chapter here in Aachen. I was the president in 2015. And when I graduated, I became the YP spokesperson, the YP chair here in the German section. And it was always, for me, very, very important to bring students and industry representatives and also scientists together, that they can share, that they can exchange their ideas. And as you can see now in these pictures, I regularly I was on stage at the Student Technical Conference, the main SPE event in Germany. But it's not only a national event, it's an international event. So we have more than 100 participants from different countries, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Poland, from Netherlands, from Switzerland, from Austria. Yeah? So international audience. And I regularly, I'm the host of the YP, the Young Professionals panel, where young professionals share their experience from their early careers and share some ideas how to build a career and what steps you have to do to prepare for entering a job or to change the job. And yes, as you can see, Daniel is still on the stage. Yeah, my friend geologist. You see this funny spelfie and the nice group picture. This last SCC happened in Aachen, in my city. And on the lower left, you can see Raphael is also very motivated young professional representative of the SPE. He nominated me for this award, and again, I have to say thank you, Raphael. It's a pleasure. And yeah, as you can see, that's these nice opportunities of bringing students, young professionals, and seniors and scientists together just creates a lot of exchange, a lot of opportunities for students, for young professionals to learn and to have orientation. And this is still what I'm doing today as a YP chair in the German section SPE, and I think it will continue. So why not? Yeah. So
Wow, that's
there was a third part in the question. I don't remember exactly.
just advice to YPs. Yeah, I think that
Ah,
came out and as you answered as well. So yeah, go ahead.
okay. The advice to YPs. It's also related to my shift of my profession. Basically, right now I experiencing a crisis like everyone else. Yeah, so we have this pandemic. It's a global pandemic, and 13 years ago, 12, 11 years ago, depending on the industry, we also had this global crisis, a different one, but it was a crisis, and people had to adapt. People had to change. People had to yeah, reinvent themselves. Yeah, to take all they have, or they had nothing, and they had to start new. So right now is again a good opportunity to rethink and to start new, or to become even better than before. And what I'm doing, instead of racing, I gave up because it was too expensive, and it was too time consuming to be on the races every weekend. So I decided every free moment I have, maybe 1 hour per day, maybe 2 hours every 2 days, or every Saturday or every Sunday, I go running. And I go running uphill. I go running downhill. Yeah. So I try the hardest profiles. Yeah. Or I go step by step. I go 2 kilometers. I go 5 kilometers. I go 10 kilometers, 20, 30. So I want to grow and I want to climb this mountain. And I know after the mountain there comes a slope. Yeah. And there comes a valley. And it's interesting to see this parallel between running hills, ups and downs, and running a career in the oil and gas industry, or in the industry in general, because it's a global downturn. And you can see a lot of opportunities for learning, a lot of lessons in the valleys. And if you take these lessons, if you see the lessons in the valleys, yeah, at rock bottom, when you're really down at rock bottom, you can take all these lectures, all these lessons, and it's much easier to climb the next hill. And from the next hill, perfect perspective from the top, as you saw in my picture, the geologist in a reservoir on top of a mountain.
Wow, Yoshka. I mean, yeah, the two key takeaways were, embrace failure, learn from it, have a growth mindset, keep learning, keep improving. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
definitely.
So we'll go to a question. We'll start off with you, Yoshka, and then open it up to the panel. And this is around you are an advocate for promoting sustainability in the energy industry, and you've been talking about it in YP workshops and student conferences. So what's been the reaction of YPs or students to this theme of yours that you have taken up?
The topic of sustainability is, especially in Germany, because we are one of the trending nations in the energy transition, which is more or less successful. But we don't want to be political here in this situation, this panel. But I can only say that sustainability is something that nowadays all the students, all the YPs expect on your agenda. If you have an event, it might be industrial or networking, it might be student event, it might be whatever. You want to sell something. There's always, since many years already, the question: is it sustainable? What is the effect on the climate? What is the CO2 footprint? And if you're basically not address the sustainability question in your agenda or in your panel discussion, basically, then people are disappointed. People think, okay, you're hiding something, and especially if you're a representative of the oil and gas, and if you're a representative of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, they expect this this responsibility from us and from you, so that they come to the events and they see you on stage, and they really want that you discuss this topic, that you address it, and that you find solutions. And that's the point. YPs and students today, they don't want to be part of the problem. They want to be part of the solution, and they don't want to have these strange questions at home. Oh, you're from the dark side. You're drilling for oil, yeah. And there are a lot of technologies in the petroleum industry, drilling, geothermal, artificial fuels, yeah, synthetic fuels, or also storage, underground storage. All these technologies are basically related to the energy transition, because we need it. We need it for the energy transition. We need it for a cleaner energy production. And so sustainability and oil and gas is basically today, it's two hands of the same person. And the petroleum industry is, I think it was the president of the SPE International 2019 who said something like, we are the technology arm, the technology arm of sustainability. So without the technology of the oil and gas industry, without the petroleum engineers, we cannot basically mitigate the climate change problem, and we have to address sustainability every day in our work life. Yeah? So this is what YPs think, and this is the feedback I got, and this is what I can say towards this topic. Yeah.
Right. No, thanks for that insight. And I'll actually club this question on sustainability with another question from the audience, which is, what is the grand challenge that people are seeing in their area of work? Sorry, and that's open for the panel. So your take on sustainability and grand challenge that you are seeing in your area of work, the biggest thing out there.
A quick comment here. One on the grand challenge in your, I think the question was in your area of work. So when that comes to me, I feel that right now we are striving for more and more recovery from the toughest of the assets to the easiest. I mean, in our case, we are in a tertiary recovery phase from multi-Darcy field, to give you a context. When we do this on a global level, we realize that we to increase this recovery, we keep on adding a lot of variables to the systems, although for the good, but they have their own byproduct, which comes across as a challenge. For example, when you're doing polymer flooding, you have challenges because of the polymer itself. Those are the aspects that for me at least, are the grand challenge at my area of work, and I really enjoy taking them heads on. As far as on the sustainability aspect, that because earlier we were talking on that, just taking a quick leaf from that, I just wanted to point out, because a lot of IPs have this feeling that with the sustainability and energy transition coming in, would we be relevant and things like that. I just want to give two aspects here. One is that we come from an industry which is all about scaling up and reducing costs. That's what every other energy vertical is looking at. And therefore, if you are sustainable, if you would like to be sustainable, you would add a certain balance of these different verticals of energy. But at the end of the day, the ones which are low on scaling up, it's going to be us. We are going to be relevant. We are going to be that part of the story.
Yana, you want to give us a I'm very curious to hear in psychology what's the big challenge as well.
In my work, grand challenge is establish the first initial contact in new organizations for new research, and also help establish understanding between employees and enterprises management. And this is achieved through the development of flexibility, great contact, and good relationship, and of course, past successful results.
Thank you, Yana. That was such an insightful session. Just now on the deep dive. So clearly, the tip from Yoshka is don't hide behind the problems, address them head on. Ankesh has clearly mentioned that there are technical challenges associated, those need to be taken head on too. And with that, the YPs should not be afraid of sustainability uh, affecting them in any way. It's going to be part and parcel. You have to learn both those things and go ahead. And Yana, of course, gave us a CEO's view. It's about managing the enterprise and the employees and taking all of them together. And yeah, I agree. I think that's the $1 million question. That is a grand challenge, worthy of a deliberation there. So next up, we'll move to the last deep dive session. This would be with Yana. So let me just give you a quick overview. Yana is the head of the psychology department at her university, and her research on psychological well-being and safety of oil and gas professionals has contributed to the development of the international standard ISO 35101. Her research work has been cited in over 100 scientific publications. So, Yana, my question, let's understand. Tell me a little bit about ISO 35101 and tell us how your research work led to the development of this.
Thank you. This ISO standard petroleum and natural gas Arctic operations working environment describes the working environment that can be expected when operating oil and gas facility in the Arctic environment and climate. Our research has become the basic for the development of the section Fitness for Work in the Arctic Operations. Different groups of people react differently to cold stress and remoteness and experience this work in the cold and or remote climate when worry. Evidence of this fact shall be implemented in training. Remoteness is an additional factor, both the psychological reasons and because distance time to prepare medical facility hospital can be long. For the various positions of the facility, a job hazard analysis should as a minimum include an evaluations of the psychological job demands and the preconditions for social interaction, support and control at work. The analysis should also consider the preconditions for recovery oil of duty at the facility. Self-regulation's ability and communication skills development. It is important in conditions of group isolations in order to prevent interpersonal conflicts. Shall be comprised into the specialist training plan. Thank you.
Cutting edge work, Yana. Let's just talk a little bit more about that. So to come up with this with the ISO standard, right? You, I think, took part in 9 scientific expeditions to the Arctic, 6 of which you led. So tell us how these expeditions helped you develop insights on the psychological well-being of professionals who are doing the FIFO, right? Like fly in, fly out operations.
Thank you. This part of my activities is the most interesting part. Because in each expeditions and in each productions, we monitored both the work processes and the life of workers, conducted an empirical assessment of the current environment factors. It is very important for labor psychologists not only to collect expert opinion of professionals, but also to immerse themselves in this reality so that the interpretations and generalizations of the results are as effective as possible. Being these workers in these harsh conditions, it becomes more clear which psychological technologies can be employed directly during fly-in, fly-out periods, and which measures need to be implemented during the rest period.
Wow. Right, Yana. So I have sort of tough question for you now. So the bulk of your research is around the psychology of work in extreme environments, right? And so oil and gas workers are not just exposed to extreme temperatures, which is sub-zero Arctic to the sizzling Sahara deserts, but are also exposed to extreme cyclicity or volatility on account of geopolitics, supply and demand shocks, etc. We're seeing that right now. So any tips for YPs on how they can deal with the stress that comes with such extreme volatility?
Thank you. I try give common rules, common recommendations for workers. Firstly, it is very important to understand and take into account implicit negative factors, and to engage in your own recovery, because the current level of conditions or current level of functional status before starting work at the beginning of flying period largely determines the future effectiveness of own activities. Therefore, during the rest period, fly out period, should be given to full and active rest. Secondly, it is necessary to develop readiness for constant changing, flexibility, as situations that may arise are very unpredictable. At the same time, it is important to improve these own skills in solving problems, so that in case of difficulties, the solutions is prompt and positions is flexible. Thirdly, it is important to be aware of dynamics of own well-being during flying period, to note the most difficult days in terms of the flying period. At this time, you should not leave difficult things, but rather leave more time to recover. It is important to learn flexibility planning and not so strive to complete all the tasks at the beginning of the flying period.
Hmm. Those were some interesting insights from your FIFO learning. Let me take this question along with another audience question to the panel, right? So the question to the panel is A, how do you deal with stress? And B, the audience question, which is what is one key technology skill that YP should be learning? So happy to go to the panel and let's see. Oh, so you want to go, Yana, first on technology
Yes,
skills? Right.
yes, I think for the successful in own activities, you can develop motivation to achieve, striving for new things, flexibility, activity, determinations, and willingness to work hard. Because if we do many work with positive well-being and positive emotions, our work don't work for us. It is rest, and it is very positive moments in our life. Just for
Perfect.
me.
That's okay. That's a tip to YPs on how they can deal with stress. What's your tip for dealing with stress? And in general, maybe you can tell us the one top technology skill that the YP should be focusing on right now.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay, go
Radha.
ahead. Go ahead,
Um,
Ankesh.
so, firstly, things which are out of your control shouldn't really be. I know it's easier said than done, but when the outcomes are being impacted by external aspects, where you don't have any control. You should rather focus on your core skills and think about further upskilling. For example, in the recent times, I thought about doing a energy risk management course. It just keeps your keeps making your perspective larger, and gives you a lot of opportunities to integrate on different aspects of the industry. Um, the As far as the learning goes, yeah, that was the question. So the key technology part, I believe, and this is just out of uh, out of the blue a bit, but I do believe that virtual reality is something which is going to completely change how we're going to train people, and in fact get a visual data confirmation from the field uh, to the headquarters. It's going to change a lot of things there, because then you're virtually at the field and not really physically there. At the same point, you're able to get the right data that you want to. You could train a lot of people with a single device. So a lot of potential there, and I believe that's something that can be taken down and has a future as it comes.
Yoshka, you want to go take this one as well?
It's a pleasure to answer this question. So first of all, I would like to address the question towards the stress. So how do I handle stress, or how should we handle stress? Um, Basically, there are two messages from me to you, from me to the audience and to the panelists. Um, Nobody puts you under stress. It's always yourself who puts you in the situation. Nobody forces you to be there where you are right now. So it's yourself who put you in a new situation in this environment, and it's only yourself who can handle and increase or reduce the stress. And basically, what I learned in an internship or in a project a few months ago is that stress is not actually the actual deformation. Stress is the intention to move. Yeah, and only when we don't move, we get deformed. So we should avoid deformation. And all the time, I have this stress ball in my hand because I'm under stress, because I put myself in this situation here because of my maybe interesting career as a volunteer and scientist in SPE. So I'm always playing with this stress ball in my hand here to reduce my level of stress. And it's me under stress, and it's me who putting this stress ball under pressure, and I'm deforming it. But we as a petroleum engineers and scientists, we should be very careful with this stress ball. Yeah, this is our planet, and we should avoid deformation. We should take care of this planet. And that leads me to one point that's very important for me. It's cultural differences. So if you're not right now able to learn new technology because you're at home, because you cannot work, because you don't have access to your workplace, try to learn a new language, or try to learn something about different cultures. Go abroad, just in your mind. Yeah, don't you cannot fly because airplanes are not flying, but you can go to YouTube and learn some new cultures. Learn Hindi language. For example, I'm right now living with computer engineers from India, and they were very happy to meet me because when they found out my name, Joshka, yeah, the short version of Joshka is Josh, yeah, and Asif can hopefully confirm that Josh has the meaning of positive energy. So
Yeah.
I always I always know that it's somehow inside me, but it's also in my name. And if you study about cultural differences, you will be surprised what nice things you can find out about the people that are living on this small little blue planet. And if I would say a technology, definitely petroleum system modeling or basin modeling is a technology that it's required, first of all, to understand where we can still find oil and gas in the subsurface. And also, when we think ahead, like 10, 20, 50 years, we can integrate basin modeling, petroleum system modeling into climate models. We can make statistics, we can make mass balances between petroleum, oil, gas, and other gases that like CO2 or methane that expels from the subsurface to the atmosphere. And we can probably integrate basin modeling with climate science, and we can have much better climate models. And then we are something like the environmental petroleum engineers or the environmental petroleum geologists. Sounds weird maybe, but maybe in 10 years, it's exactly what we need, or maybe it's even today. So that's my take-home message. Yeah, don't put this under stress. And if you feel the stress, it's only yourself who put you in a situation, and you can reduce it by yourself. You can handle the stress on your own. Yeah,
Wow,
that's it.
Yoshka.
That's all I wanted to say.
No, such great insights from the panel. I mean, you could be charging like $10,000 an hour for this kind of advice. It's really, really in-depth stuff. I loved it. My favorite way of busting stress is listening to music, and that's why we have Ankesh now. Ankesh, it's your turn. The stage is yours. Do enthrall us with a few lines of your singing.
All right. Probably from Bob Dylan. A few lines from Bob Dylan. Everyone could relate with. So that's how it goes. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? And how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in sand? Yes, and how many times must a cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Wow, perfect, perfect. So with that, Ankesh, fabulous. And to the panel, thank you so much for all the insightful answers that you've given us today. We had the first influencer session as well, and that's available as a recording under SPE Live. You combine that with what we heard today, and you can, if you connect the dots, you'll see that all of these energy influencers are having a positive influence, are making the world a better place, empowered by energy. We have a next SPE live session in 2 weeks from now, and that would be hosted by TWA editor Beta Bayatsa Parveen. So I'm eagerly awaiting that. Please keep following the SPE social media handles to get the details and the join in link. Before I log out, I have to call out two people. I'd like to really thank Asha Robles and Jason Notoris, who've been working behind the scenes tirelessly, making this SP live session possible. And to me, in these unprecedented times, uh, SP Live is my way of connecting with the global oil and gas community. So I can't tell you how grateful I am for these SP Live sessions. All right, we are almost at the 100-minute mark. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. Good day and bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye.